What's up, everybody? I'm Mckenty. This is my second channel where I talk about business and marketing and entrepreneurship and personal development, all that kind of stuff that's not a fit for my main channel. It's been a little bit since I updated this channel because I've been so damn busy. But here I am, I'm back, and what I want to talk about, because it looks like we're probably headed into a recession, is what should you do in a recession? Again, this is just my opinion, and the specifics depend on your particular situation, so take this all with a heavy grain of salt. But I have been through 3 of these. The first one I went through was in, I guess it was like 2000, right at the very beginning of my career. This is when, like, maybe you've heard of this. If you're older, you'll remember it. If you're younger, this was the dot-com crash. So back then, this is when all the like kind of half-baked businesses like pets.com and Webvan and all these companies, these internet companies that raised a bunch of money but didn't actually have any way to become profitable. Everyone kind of found out, and these companies exploded, and it kind of killed the whole tech industry for a couple years. And this affected me because I was like, 19 or 20 then, trying to get my foot in the door of the tech industry. Kind of right before the bubble burst, I got an internship. I only worked there for like 2 months or something like that, maybe 3 months. Like 20 hours a week, just barely got my foot in the door. And I was so excited, like, yes, finally I got my foot in the door. And then the company went out of business because all the other companies went out of business, and took a couple years for the tech market to come back. The second one was 2001 on 9/11. I was in a shitty dead-end printing job that I hated, so I hadn't really like figured out a way to get my foot back into tech. And I was kind of trying to figure out my escape route. Then 9/11 happened, and that just stopped everything in its tracks again. And I was like, well, fuck. I was just kind of starting to get back on track to figure out how to get out of this shitty dead-end printing job. Shit, what am I going to do now? And that killed everything again for like a year or two, really slowed everything down. The third one was in 2008. Now, in 2008, it was a little bit different. I was in college then. I graduated at the end of 2009, which was right about the perfect time for the economy to start kind of getting back on its feet. So I was fortunate enough to be in school then, and so it kind of didn't really directly affect me. I had a job then at a design agency. Our agency was affected by it. We laid some people off. So that was the third one. I've seen this play out a few times, and I'm not going to say that I have it all figured out by any means, but I have been through it 3 times, and I think that I learned something from it. So I'm just going to share what I learned with you in this video. First thing to remember is that these things are cyclical. Just like we knew that this last boom period wasn't going to last forever, we should also remember that the downturn's not going to last forever. They usually last 12 to 18 months, just kind of as a rule of thumb. This one's a little bit different because it's like a biological phenomenon, so we really don't know how long it's going to last, all that stuff. But generally speaking, they last 12 to 18 months, and you have to figure that this one is also going to end, unless we believe this is like the end of civilization, in which case your job is the least of your worries. You better be preparing for the zombie apocalypse. But let's assume that we do think this thing is going to come to an end. It's only a matter of time. And I don't mean to diminish your concerns at all. There's a girl I was talking to on Twitter the other day who lost her job because she's a bartender. And in Ohio, where she lives, they closed down all the bars last week. So that sucks. I mean, that's real, and I would never try to minimize that. But that said, like, it's not going to be this way forever. So keep that in mind. So what do you do during this? Let's say it's going to be 12 to 18 months. I don't know if that's true. I'm not making that prediction, but let's just say that it's going to be 12 to 18 months. What do you do during that 12 to 18 months? Prepare yourself so that you can hit the ground running when things do get a little bit better. And here's what I would do. Number 1, learn some kind of skill. Or if you already are learning a skill, like perfect that skill. For example, if you're a photographer, if you're a web designer, if you're a graphic designer, a developer, whatever it is, spend as much time as you can while the economy sucks getting better at your skill, so that when then the economy does come back online and people want employees or contractors or whatever that do what you do, you're going to be ready for it. And you're going to be better than everybody else who just kind of sat on their ass worrying and doing nothing the whole time. Second thing is, as part of that, you may want to consider going back to school. Or if you have been considering going back to school, when there's an economic downturn, that's generally a good time to go to school, because one of the reasons you wouldn't go to school is because that means you're taking yourself out of the job market. But if there's an economic downturn and the job market sucks, well, taking yourself out of a shitty job market is not the worst thing in the world, right? And typically interest rates, at least right now, interest rates are low. So if you do need to take on any loans, this is probably as good of a time as any to do it. So that's the second thing to consider. If you have been thinking about going to school, this might be a good time to do it. Thing number 3 is, if you can, invest in the stock market. I'm not going to try to time the stock market. That's generally a bad thing to do. But broadly speaking, buy the dip is pretty good advice. I mean, we have to figure that the stock market is going to get better. Like, it's down, I don't know, as of now, it's down something like 25% off the high that it hit, 3 or 4 weeks ago. So right now, think of it as a sale. Like, we have to believe that the economy is going to go back up again. Again, if you don't believe the economy is going to go up again, then we got bigger problems than the stock market, right? Then you should be buying guns and ammo and thinking about how to live like it's Fallout 4. But if you believe the economy is going to go back up at some point, then buying now is like essentially buying when everything's on a 30% sale. And it might take a year or two to come back, but it will. At least we have to believe it will. You know, you can go look up right now. If you had invested $1,000 in late 2008, early 2009, when the economy was like at its bottom, you can see how that would have performed. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but you would have made a killing on that $1,000 because you got it at a huge discount. So again, I know that it's difficult, especially if, you know, your job has been affected by the, the quarantine and stuff. I know it's difficult to find money to invest, but even if it's just $25 here and there, do what you can if you can. I know that it's tough. And then, of course, obviously, don't spend money on dumb shit. If you have any kind of like hobby, maybe consider putting it on hold, especially if it's an expensive one, like buying musical instruments or whatever. This is not a good time to do it. What you want to do is retain a position where you can spend as much time as possible focusing on building your skills so that you will come out of this in a good position, so that when things do start coming back online, you can participate in that. And the more debt you have and the more you waste money on dumb shit, like, that limits your options. If you can help it, you don't want to go get a shitty retail job for the next 2 years to ride this thing out. If you keep your monthly expenses low, maybe, the freelance market is not going to be great for the next year or two, probably, but maybe you can like eke out a living. At least, you're going to get by because you've kept your monthly expenses low, and you are essentially then getting paid to improve your skills so that when the economy comes back online, you're going to be in a good position. That's going to be a lot harder to do if you're, working a retail job or something like that. So that's what I would do in a downturn. Build that skill, consider going back to school, or if you've thought about going back to school, this is a good time to do it. Number 3, invest, but and 4, don't spend money on dumb shit. So that's my advice as somebody who's been through a few of these things. Just remember, it's not going to last forever, or if it does, we're all going to be killing each other over a can of beans, and then none of this shit I'm saying matters at all. But it's not going to last forever. Things will get better, and what you want to do is use this time to put yourself in a position where when things start to improve, you can win. So hang in there, keep your head in the game. I hope this helps. And if you made it this far, if you haven't already added me on LinkedIn, please do that, because I'm trying to build a community there where like-minded people from our world can make the most out of LinkedIn. There's a lot of cool stuff happening on there right now, like a lot of people sharing content. It's kind of like how Facebook was in 2012, only it's for business instead of people sharing random BuzzFeed articles like they did back then. So there's some cool stuff happening on there. Connect with me over there. Let's try to build a community on there and see what happens. So keep your head in the game. My thoughts are with everybody whose health or job has been affected by this shit. Hang in there. Let's all help each other get through this. And I hope that something I said was helpful.